do not have a hard formed stool. Okay, from the constipation, you can see the F1 type 1 to 2 is a constipation.
स्लाइडै चेन्ज भएको छैन
हजुर
हजुरको स्लाइडै फर्स्ट स्लाइड देखाइरहेछ
हो र
हजुर
अहिले यो देखिरहेछ इटियोलोजी
छैन सर
अहिले देखिरहेछ छैन
क्रोनिक डायरियाकै स्लाइड मात्रै आइरहेछ
यहाँ आउँदै हैन स्लाइड चेन्ज भएन भनेर अहिले स्लाइड देखिदैन
स्लाइड त देखिरहेछ सर तर क्रोनिक बल्ल आयो ब्रिस्टल स्टुल चार्ट
अच्छा है ओके भयो भटोको लगाइदिनुस् म यसरी नै गर्छु सो स्टुल चार्टमा त क्लियर कट स्टुलको त्यो चार्टिङहरु छ टाइप 1 देखि टाइप 7 टाइप 1 and 2 आर कन्स्टिपेसन 3 and 4 आर नर्मल whereas 5 6 7 falls on the category of diarrhea है यु क्यान सी डिफरेन्स यो चाहिँ स्टुलको कन्सिस्टेन्सी अनुसार डायरियाको डेफिनेसन हो त फ्रिक्वेन्सी अनुसार मोर देन 3 times of stools per day for 4 weeks is known as a chronic diarrhea र स्टुल चार्टमा चाहिँ ब्रिस्टल स्टुल चार्टमा युजुअली इट फल्स अन टाइप 5 6 and 7 टाइपको अहिले देखिन्छ
हजुर सर
Okay. Etiology of the chronic diarrhea. देखिएन
मैले भान्जालाई त फोन गरेको थिएँ अर्को नम्बर अर्को भान्जाले गरेको थिएँ अक्कललाई अनि म
तिमीहरुको आवाज
अहिले एडमिसन गर्ने अरे अङ्कल
इटियोलोजिज medications like chronic medications chronic diarrhea को एकदमै कमन कज भनेको युजुअली PPIs एकदमै कमन कज हो chronic use of PPI can cause chronic diarrhea SSRI especially amitriptylines escitalopram हरुले AR2B2 blockers metformin is another very common cause of chronic diarrhea and orlistat यो भनेको usually obesity को लागि दिने औषधि हो and then is second classification is osmotic diarrhea. Osmotic diarrhea is usually because of certain osmoles that you ingest, okay, and because you ingest certain osmoles, this has a classical features that resolves with fasting. Means if you don't eat any osmoles, there will be no diarrhea. This is one of the differentiating point to distinguish from secretory diarrhea, which is which does not changes its characteristics with feeding. So what can be the osmoles? Some carbohydrates, some magnesium, some phosphates. So carbohydrate malabsorption, any carbohydrate malabsorption, lactase intolerance. So you eat lactose and there is a lactose intolerance and you get diarrhea because it cannot be absorbed. Laxative abuse, because of laxatives, the laxatives are the drugs causing diarrhea. So whenever you take in a massive form, so there will be the magnesium in the laxatives, okay, that causes the disruption in your ciliary motility and cause chronic diarrhea. Again, the malabsorption syndrome like lactase deficiency, cystic fibrosis, celiac disease, tropical sprue, and they all have a vicinity for disruption in the intestinal villi, causing the decrease in absorption of all the nutrients, and there will be accumulation of the fluids in your intra-abdominal lumen. So it causes, because of that amount of the fluid, it causes abdominal distension, bloating, flatulence. There will be the bacterial overgrowth of it. Okay, so third condition is secretory diarrhea. This is the form of the diarrhea where your conditions are intestinal secretions or pancreatic secretions will be produced inside your body, or there will be the decreased absorption. Okay, so here the chemicals that produce diarrhea are produced inside your body in a significant manner. That's why it does not changes its stool output with the fasting. For example, certain tumors that are present in the small intestinal and the pancreatic secretions like VIPoma, somatostenoma, gastrinoma, some bile acid malabsorption, microscopic colitis, and even in cases of cholera also, there will be toxins, cholera toxins, which causes a massive amount of the secretions. So it produces a secretory diarrhea. So here the condition producing a diarrhea, the chemicals are produced within your body like VIP. VIP means vasoactive intestinal peptides. Okay, so they causes severe diarrhea. And it is irrespective of your feeding habits, whether you go for fasting or you take a food, this diarrhea won't stop. Whereas in case of osmotic diarrhea, your diarrhea stops because this is due to the ingestion of ingested soluble from outside something into your intestinal tract. Then the other causes include chronic infections like giardiasis, tuberculosis, intra-amoeba histolytica, Clostridium difficile, in strong glial diseases, Microsporidia, Cryptosporidia in cases of this strong gliardiasis, and Microsporidia, Cryptosporidia are more common in cases of immunocompromised people, like in HIV or those in anti-cancer treatment. Then there is an inflammatory cause like inflammatory bowel disease. The difference here is in this type of diarrhea there will be a blood present, bloody diarrhea. Okay, and there are some motility disorders like irritable bowel syndrome, thyroid disorders, especially hyperthyroidism, radiation enteritis, post surgery. Because of surgery there will be the disruption in the intestinal villi that causes decrease in absorption of your micronutrients and causes chronic diarrhea. So these are some of the causes of common causes of chronic diarrhea. You can see some common causes. Irritable bowel syndrome, one of the most common causes of the diarrhea presenting in your OPD clinics. So bile acid diarrhea, diet, especially artificial sweetener, caffeine, excessive alcohol. The patient who drinks excessive, even in the binge drinker, you can see tomorrow the patient will have a greasy color of stool because the fat will be severely depleted, lipase will be activated, and there will be the severe disruptions. Okay, so these are the usually this on your right side, these are the causes that are more common in the western part, not in our part of the body. Our part in Southeast Asia, we have a more common cause like antibiotics, metformin, that is very common. We have a more common of giardiasis, infectious diarrhea, tuberculosis. So these are much more common in our part of the world, whereas in western part of the world, in irritable bowels, inflammatory bowel disease are more common. And these are some other causes. Chronic diarrhea can be caused in diabetes. The only difference is in diabetes there will be nocturnal diarrhea. So these are more common. Though these are not infrequent. Chronic pancreatitis is not frequent in Southeast Asia. Okay. So now we come to the clinical assessment. How will you evaluate or approach for the cases of chronic diarrhea? Careful history and examinations should be done in all the patients. Most of the time your history and examination will give you the proper diagnosis. First line investigations are normally performed within the primary care, means like simple CB, blood investigation, stool routine and microscopic investigation, and serological testings. Secondary care means when we have to think of extra disease that are not prevalent in our community. Normal first line investigations, symptoms severe enough to impair your quality of life, and the alarming features like unexplained change in the bowel habit, persistent blood, that is always dangerous, unintentional weight loss, always dangerous, malignancies has to be thought of. In those type of the patients, you have to go for secondary investigations. So see, you have to distinguish malabsorption from inflammatory form of diarrhea. And how will you do that? Inflammatory or infective will always have a blood. There will be the less prevalence of some malabsorptions like absorption of iron, absorption of calcium, and carbohydrate, protein, fat absorption deficiency. Whereas inflammatory will have blood, mucus present in it. Okay. And you have to also think of alarm features. And what are they? I already mentioned in the previous slide. Blood in the stool, weight loss, and persistent chronic diarrhea is one of the alarm features in the patient. You have to distinguish this, whether the patient have inflammatory diarrhea or infective diarrhea. Then another point which I have not mentioned here is you have to think of whether this is a small bowel diarrhea or large bowel diarrhea. Okay. So suggestive of organic disease, you can see organic, any organic disease like diarrhea less than 3 months of duration, predominantly nocturnal diarrhea are always pathological, continuous diarrhea and significant weight loss. These are the organic disease, whereas diarrhea persisting for more than 3 months, which are usually in daytime but not in the night time, there is no weight loss. Diarrhea usually stops 3 to 5 times per day and then stops. These are usually a functional diarrhea, and we basically label them as irritable bowel syndrome. Basically, this point is for you is to distinguish the organic disease, means that is not a functional disorder, to that of functional organic disorder. So risk factor, you can see these are the certain risk factors that helps you to say that the patient is having organic diarrhea or some certain pathologies are involved in that. The family history of chronic diarrhea, family history of neoplastic or any malignancy, celiac disease or inflammatory bowel disease. If the patient has previous surgery, previous pancreatic disease, systemic disease like hyperthyroidism, hypoparathyroidism, if the patient have diabetes, if the patient is a chronic alcoholic, diets like certain patients like patients go on heavy fat diet, drugs as I mentioned you, PPIs, chronic PPIs, diabetes drugs like metformin, sitagliptins, and then SSRIs. These are common causes of drug induced diarrhea. Then recent overseas travel, this is for Western people. For Western people, if they come to the endemic area like in Southeast Asia or in the Middle East Asia or Africa, they'll and then they follow a diarrhea that is a tropical diarrhea. We label it as a tropical diarrhea, and they can persist even for 1 year. Okay, so this is history is important. So initial investigation, as I mentioned, you first line is always an initial investigation. Special investigation are not done initially. Okay, so initial investigation includes simple complete blood count, urea and electrolytes, liver function test, vitamin B12 deficiencies, that is quite common in case of chronic diarrhea, calcium and thyroid function test, and stool test for inflammation, fecal calprotectin, ova, cyst, parasite, you have to do it. Then screening for the celiac disease, especially in the Western world, celiac disease is quite common, and basically the common features of celiac disease is patient is having anemia, and the patient increases the diarrhea with the ingestion of gluten. That is, if you eat a gluten, wheat, barley, the patient start having a diarrhea. So you have to screen for celiac disease. Okay, HIV infections should be excluded in the patient who are immunocompromised, as HIV enteropathy is one of the common cause of chronic diarrhea all around the world. So sometimes you have to think of Clostridium difficile infection in the patient who has recently taken antibiotics or the patient who has taken smoked food. हामी सेकुवा खान्छौँ, सेकुवा खाएपछि भोलिपल्ट कहिलेकाहीँ धेरै खाना खाएर डायरिया हुन्छ, especially. So recent antibiotic, especially clindamycin, cephalosporin, levofloxacin, quinolones group of drugs. Okay, this causes more for Clostridium difficile infections, and you have to confirm it on the basis of stool for testing for toxins of Clostridium difficile. So infectious disease agents, these are especially in the Western world. In our part of the world, this is a common cause of chronic diarrhea is infectious agents, and they are giardiasis, amoebiasis, okay, ascariasis can cause, sometimes tuberculosis even can cause chronic diarrhea. So first line is refers from, you will find everything this is in book, okay, first line, because the book is written for the by the Western people. In our part of the world, chronic diarrhea is the infectious agent are one of the common cause of chronic diarrhea even in immunocompetent patient. Okay, so giardiasis, amoebiasis always has to be ruled out. The three phase stool for ovocyst and parasites remains the mainstay of the diagnosis, and add tuberculosis. Abdominal tuberculosis is one of the common cause of chronic diarrhea in our part of the world. So these are now further investigation when you have a normal first line investigation or there are alarming signs in the initial, you have to go for malignancies. Fecal calprotectin is the new concept where inflammation is suspected and not cancer. So chronic diarrhea because of any inflammation like inflammatory bowel disease, if the fecal calprotectin is raised, this is a common cause for organic or inflammatory bowel disease, and the cutoff value is 50 microgram per gram of feces is recommended. Okay, in a patient with typical symptoms of functional bowel disease, normal physical examination, normal screening of blood and fecal test, that is, this is the cases of functional organic functional diarrhea, and it is more of irritable bowel syndrome. See, fecal calprotectin, normal physical examination and normal screening of blood and the fecal test. So you have a functional bowel disease, and that is known as irritable bowel syndrome. Clear? Clear, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So now I mentioned you in the first line, you have to distinguish from small intestine to that of lower intestine. So differentiating point includes, okay, lower small intestine, that is lower GI tract, has a massive amount of diarrhea, large volume diarrhea. Small intestine have usually small volume of diarrhea. Mucus and blood are more present in lower GI tract, and usually upper GI tract like small intestine usually have protein or protein deficiency or fat lipase deficiency, so steatorrhea is more common. So you have to distinguish from lower GI tract to that of upper GI tract. And for lower GI tract, you always have to suspect a colon cancer, even in case of without rectal bleeding. Okay, so fecal immunotesting, that is fecal immunotesting, helps in the urgency of investigations. In the patient with chronic diarrhea, you are thinking of lower GI tract, you have to go for colonoscopy, ileoscopy, ultrasound abdomen, and CT scan abdomen. That helps to distinguish it from inflammatory bowel disease to that of malignancies. In a younger patient, just sigmoidoscopy is enough with fecal calprotectin. But in a more than 40 years patient, you have to go for full colonoscopy and non-invasive scan imaging like ultrasonography and CECT. Ultrasound of the small bowel has limited diagnostic role, cannot be recommended routinely. However, in our part of the world, as I told you, tuberculosis is one of the common condition. The role of ultrasound abdomen is significantly increased because of abdominal lymph nodes, matted gut loops, thickening of omentum, all can be found even in case of ultrasound abdomen. So enteroscopy is the device used for small intestine to look for the direct visualization of the small intestine, and this has a limited diagnostic value until and unless other causes can be excluded with simple upper and lower GI endoscopy. Enteroscopy means everything of small intestine. So first we go for endoscopy, then colonoscopy, and if it is normal with normal ultrasound, then we go for enteroscopy. Colonoscopy biopsy to be ruled out for microscopic colitis in a patient with chronic diarrhea with large volume diarrhea, and there are no significant blood in the stool, and there is a normal colonoscopy. You have to take a biopsy of colon to rule out microscopic colitis, and it's always right side of the colon. So both glucose and lactose, this is now we come for the special conditions of malabsorption syndrome. Now these are the investigations of chronic diarrhea for malabsorption syndrome. Okay, so malabsorption syndrome is small bowel obstruction. You have to go for glucose and hydrogen breath test. If rapid intestinal transit, like in case of you are suspecting a chronic diarrhea because of rapid intestinal transit in which there is increased peristalsis, okay, so colonic motility should be assessed with manometry. Pancreatic insufficiency like chronic pancreatitis, you have to go for endoscopic ultrasonography or magnetic resonance cholangiopancreatography with secretin test if available. Culture of small bowel aspirate is usually seen in small bowel bacterial overgrowth, but these are very poorly method and positive results may not reflect significant small bowel bacterial overgrowth syndrome. So then rare cases, as I mentioned, in cases of secretory diarrhea, BIPoma, somatostatinoma, you can assess the hormone level, and factitious diarrhea means the patient who was taking continuous ingestion of laxatives. You have to test for stool osmolarity. You give a result of factitious diarrhea. So just to summarize, primary clinical assessment of all the conditions, blood, celiac serology should be done in all the patients of chronic diarrhea, stool for Clostridium difficile, ova, cyst and parasites of giardiasis, Clostridium difficile, fetal calprotectin should be done in all the patients. This is the first line investigation in all the patients of chronic diarrhea. So if you are suspecting something extra, if they have features of cancer or inflammation, okay, so you have to go for fecal calprotectin test, colonoscopy, sigmoidoscopy, ileoscopy, CECT, MRI, depending upon the clinical scenario. So first line includes simple routine blood and the stool test. And if you are suspecting some other organic causes, you have to go for some invasive investigations. So this is just a summary of what I have told you till now. Okay, so if there is a positive one, first line, then you have to go for irritable bowel syndrome. Otherwise, you have to go for some other organic causes. Now, if the patient have a normal the first slide, then you have to go for second investigations, clinical assessment, whether the patient have malabsorption like iron, vitamin B12 level, folate level. In case of malabsorption, this will be decreased. Calcium and albumin level will be decreased. You have to assess for immunodeficiency. As I mentioned you earlier, HIV is one of the common cause for chronic diarrhea. Then patient might be using chronic antibiotics. So stool for Clostridium ova, toxins especially has to be done. So common disorders like bile acid diarrhea, sometimes the patient have resections of gallbladder or biliary tract. So SECAT test should be done. Microscopic colitis again is colonoscopy, and the biopsy of the right side of colon has to be done. Lactose malabsorption, hydrogen breath test can be done, and post radiation diarrhea you can go confirm it with colonoscopy or sigmoidoscopy. And you have to go for a specific test for some pancreatic insufficiency, intestinal tumor according to the scenario of the patient. So malabsorption, again fat malabsorption may be present, surgical disorders like fistula may be present, and rare cause, as I mentioned you, hormones, and factitious diarrhea, urinary laxative screens has to be done. So this summarizes all your chronic diarrhea evaluation. Any questions till now? Any questions? Okay. So next topic, तिमीहरुको malabsorption syndrome छ. यो पनि यो थर्सडे को लागि थियो, तर मैले पनि but I thought because this is a related to chronic diarrhea, so I am teaching you today only. Okay. So malabsorption syndrome. Malabsorption means defective mucosal uptake in the small intestine of adequate nutrients, multivitamins, trace elements and usually malabsorption defined as a deficiency of 2 or more nutrients deficiency, usually fat, protein, carbohydrate, then anemia, vitamin B12 levels. This all should be, this all are included in malabsorption syndrome. So malabsorption must be included in differentials of chronic diarrhea. So this is more or less similar to what I have taught you till now. Decrease in stool consistency, diarrhea. Quantitative measure is usually 200 to more than 200 ml of or gram for 24 hours. And high fiber may have a stool weight of 400, so more than three times per day for past 4 weeks. Secretory diarrhea and the osmotic diarrhea, again it's the same. Large intestinal fluid in electrolyte secretions in case of secretory diarrhea do not respond to the prolonged fasting, whereas it responds to the prolonged fasting. Okay, so clinical evaluation is simple. Diarrhea, whether it is a chronic type, bloating is present, unexplained skin changes like mouth ulcers may be present, previous abdominal surgery, especially gastrectomy. Because of this intestinal surgery, there will be a reduced amount of small intestine. As a result, there will be the decrease in mucosal surface, so absorbing surface area. Whenever you resect a large amount of small bowel, there will be the, because the food will pass into the certain time into the small intestine, and it takes a certain transit time, which is known as small bowel transit time. If you cut large amount of the small bowel, the transit time increases. As a result, there will be decreased absorption of your nutrient conditions. As a result, there will be overload in your overload of the food materials in your small intestine. So bacterial proliferation will be much more higher. And there will be the chronic diarrhea. So the treatment, or what we say is, whenever the patient bowel resection is done, we ask the patient to have a small and frequent meal so that the meal overload is reduced in your bowel. Again, pancreatic resection, the patient might have a history of chronic pancreatitis, medications as I mentioned earlier, recurrent peptic ulcer disease, any chronic disease, diabetes, chronic liver disease can cause malabsorption syndrome. So these are certain signs and symptoms. Okay, diarrhea, steatorrhea, the fecal fat may be increased because lipase level is reduced in cases of fecal fat. Weight loss is a common feature. Anemia, in a proximal bowel, the iron is absorbed from duodenum and the proximal jejunum. So proximal bowel pathologies will always have iron deficiencies, whereas terminal ileum always have a vitamin B12 deficiencies. So pernicious anemia can be present, pain in the limbs and the bones, pathological fractures because of deficiency in calcium absorption and the vitamin D levels, which are commonly absorbed in proximal stomach. So the patient may have osteoporosis, osteomalacia. Bleeding may be present because of vitamin K deficiencies, because vitamin K is absorbed from the intestine. Okay, so edema may be present because of albumin deficiencies in cases of chronic diarrhea. So these are common signs and symptoms, and this is non-specific. All the patients of chronic diarrhea may have same pathophysiology. Clear? Because whenever there is a chronic diarrhea, the intestinal mucosal fibers are reduced. The surface area for absorption from small intestine is reduced. The area, surface area, maximum absorption is of the food occurs in your small intestine, and whenever the mucociliary clearance or mucosal absorptive surface area is reduced, there will be reduced absorption of your prominent nutrients, mainly iron, calcium, vitamin B12, vitamin K, and your albumin, as a result of which this occurs. All your anemia, vitamin B12 deficiencies, osteomalacia, osteoporosis, vitamin K deficiencies, and severe edema of the patients. Clear, sir? Yasammo? Clear?
Sure.
Okay. So how to approach in the cases of malabsorption? This is same for chronic diarrhea also. Okay, so it's not a different topic. It is more or less same topic. Such some topics has to be treated, taken from you. So take a careful history. Whether you are traveling to the sort of endemic areas, especially for tropical sprue. Okay, so consider family history. Hints of a malabsorption physical examination. Look for stool volume, draw blood, again initial examination and secondary examination. So I am not going to talk about what are the initial examinations that of chronic diarrhea. It has been explained in for you in chronic diarrhea section. Okay, so specific like bacterial, carbohydrate malabsorption. Okay, the most common cause for test for carbohydrate malabsorption is hydrogen breath test. Second is for celiac disease, anti-intromycetial and anti-gliadin, anti-TTG, usually IgA deficiency. Okay, then there are tests for giardiasis, enteropathic bacteria. Okay, abdominal gallbladder ultrasound to look for liver, pancreas, intestinal wall expert for tuberculosis. So sometimes upper GI endoscopy has to be taken and biopsy from not from stomach but from duodenum for celiac disease. Okay, so colonoscopy and the biopsy for vitamin B12 deficiency we have to go for ileum. Now pancreatic disease, again CT, ERCP. Small bowel disease is suspected for vitamin B12 deficiency. Seeling's disease test, we call it for Seeling's test. Bacterial overgrowth, hydrogen breath test. I am going to discuss later this in detail. Small bowel X-ray, sometimes fistula can be seen. And angiography of the celiac or mesenteric arteries for ischemic bowel damage to the small intestine, mesenteric ischemia. So fecal, the most common whenever you go for the malabsorption is fecal fat stimulation. These are usually done before. Nowadays we don't usually go for fecal fat stimulation because we have to give 72 hours of fat and we have to collect stool for at least 3 days. Okay, see the second point, fecal fat estimated on 72 hours collection. So who goes for collecting stool for 72 hours? Nobody. So this test is just for theoretical interest. Nowadays we don't follow this test. So whenever you give a daily 100 gram of fat, ideally 7 gram of fat has to be excreted. Usually it has to be normal, all the fat has to be excreted. If your fat level after 72 hours is 6 gram or more per day, it is known as fat malabsorption. Okay, we don't usually perform nowadays. So we usually go for 14C triune test, triglyceride which is hydrolyzed by pancreatic lipase. Absorption of metabolism of 14C triolin leads to the increased excretion of 14 carbon dioxide by lungs, and this is a breath test with a radioactive fat level. Sudan 3 test, quantitative test, we detect clinically steatorrhea in more than 90% of the cases. This has to be done. तिमीले यसको डिटेल के छ बुकबाट खोज्नुस्, म डिटेलमा पढाउँदिन यो है. So we don't go for तिमीलाई सोध्ने theoretically म भनेको quantitative fat estimation हो, तर अहिले गर्ने हामीले भनेको 14C triolin test, Sudan test and near infra reflectance assay भन्छ. Usually 42 hours fat estimation को जस्तै accurate हुन्छ. Simultaneous measurement of fecal fat, nitrogen and carbohydrates. So these are more commonly used technique for fat absorption. ठीक छ, किताबमा हेर्नुस् यसको स्टेप वाइज प्रोसिडियरहरु छ, टक्क भेटिन्छ. So sealing test for vitamin B12 deficiencies, again this is radio labeled vitamin B12 which has to be given 1 hour prior to the testing. Radioactive vitamin B12 is given and then it is seen in the urine. Okay, in case of pernicious anemia, so vitamin B12 coalamine is reduced. Okay, this is the basic test distinguished from pernicious anemia vitamin B12 deficiency to that of intestinal excretion. So in case of pernicious anemia or intrinsic factor deficiency, the initial vitamin B12 level in the urine is reduced. But when you again repeat the test with intrinsic factor, okay? So with intrinsic factor, when you give the intrinsic factor and you collect a urine, the pernicious, in case of pernicious anemia, the vitamin B12 level, then urine vitamin B12 is again comes to the normal. So you can say that with when you give intrinsic factor and it again comes out to be the normal. So this is a case of pernicious anemia. In case of pancreatitis, with intrinsic factor also it is reduced, because this is not a case of intrinsic factor deficiency. This is a case of terminal ileal deficiency problem, where intrinsic factor has no role of absorption. So with the giving the intrinsic factor also, if it is does not improves your urinary vitamin B12 level, so this is not a case of pernicious anemia. This is a more cases of chronic bacterial pancreatitis, bacterial overgrowth or ileal disease. Clear sir? पहिला रेडियोएक्टिभ भिटामिन B12 दिने, त्यसपछि 24 आवर्समा युरिनरी भिटामिन B12 कलेक्ट गर्ने, त्यतिखेर भिटामिन B12 को भ्यालु के आउँछ हेर्ने। भिटामिन B12 लेभल घट्यो भने त्यसपछि इन्ट्रिन्सिक फ्याक्टर दिएर हेर्ने, र इन्ट्रिन्सिक फ्याक्टर दिइसकेपछि यदि भिटामिन B12 को लेभल बढ्यो भने दिस इज अ केस अफ पर्निसियस एनिमिया वेयर देयर इज अ कज clear cut evidence of intrinsic factor deficiency. With intrinsic factor deficiency, when you give the intrinsic factor, it all absorbs. Absorption ma koi problem chaina, so again it absorbs bhancha. Tara feri intrinsic factor दिँदाखेरि पनि reduce भयो भने absorption मा problem छ. The absorption मा problem के मा हुन्छ भन्दाखेरि chronic pancreatitis, bacterial overgrowth र in ileal disease. ठीक छ? पुरो बुझ्या हो?
Sir.
Okay. So carbohydrate absorption test, hydrogen weight test and D-xylose test are the two tests done for carbohydrate absorption, malabsorption. Okay. So D-xylose test, it is a pentose which is excreted unchanged in the urine. So 25 gram D-xylose test is given and collected in the urine for 5 hours, after 5 hours. Okay. If it is less than 4.5 excretion, so there is a presence of duodenal or mucosal disease, because see D-xylose is not absorbed from your small intestine. So whenever there is a, if you give 25 gram, so if it should have much more amount of D-xylose in urine. However, if it is less, so it excretion reflects the patient has a duodenal or mucosal disease, because it cannot absorb from duodenum. So it may also be abnormal in blind loop syndrome in cases of surgical consult, and false positive in the patient with large fluid collection, especially in cases of ascites. Impaired renal functions, as impaired when you have impaired renal function, it cannot be excreted properly. Okay. In cases with failed malabsorption, this test differentiates pancreatic from intestinal malabsorption. D-xylose is also normal in case of pancreatic disease. So this is basically nowadays a common test for carbohydrate malabsorption. Now second is hydrogen breath test. Here you give a hydrogen, radioactive hydrogen, and it is measured in your breathing, and patient is given a pure lactose which is 20 to 25 grams, and then hydrogen level is measured in the breath after 15, 30, 60 and for 2 hours. Okay, if your level of hydrogen level rises more than 20 parts per million from your baseline within the test period, the test is positive. The basic principle is lactose is converted into carbohydrate and hydrogen. So if you have a carbohydrate malabsorption, this cannot be absorbed from your intestine. So there will be, because of bacterial overgrowth, it will be converted into carbon dioxide and hydrogen level. And when you try to breathe, this lactose, which is converted in, which is a part of carbohydrate, converted into carbon dioxide by intestinal bacteria, gives you a positive hydrogen breath test. ठीक sir? So this indirectly signifies the carbohydrate malabsorption. Then there is lactose tolerance test. This is again same. 50 gram of lactose is given. Blood glucose level is measured at 0, 60 and 120 minutes, that is 2 hours. If the blood glucose level is less than 20 milligram per limit, along with the development of the symptoms, it is characteristics of lactose intolerance, because the patient cannot absorb the lactose. They can only absorb glucose. So bacterial overgrowth, again quantitative bacterial count from jejunal aspirate, okay, not duodenal, but jejunal aspirate is less than 105 per ml jejunum and more than 105 per ileum is ileum. Bacterial, if in cases of intestinal obstruction, there are overgrowth of the bacteria which causes a serious malabsorption of carbohydrate. So this is another test to go for bacterial overgrowth, and this is the most reliable test for diagnosing small bowel bacterial overgrowth syndrome, and the aspiration has to be taken from jejunum or ileum, not from duodenum. ठीक sir? So these are some classifications of malabsorption syndrome, like inadequate digestion. In case of pancreatic disease, gastrinoma, drugs like Orlistat, impaired micelles formation. So this will be more of fat malabsorption, because if you remember your physiology, micelle formation is very, very important in cases of fat absorption. Liver disease, because of bile is not released from your liver and it is not passed into the gallbladder, so there will be the bile acid malabsorption. Bacterial overgrowth in cases of blind surgical conditions or functional status of like diabetes, scleroderma. Interrupted enterohepatocirculation of the bile acids. If you remember your basic science, the bile acids are from the small intestine are again reabsorbed, and if you have some terminal ileal resection disease, there will be the disruption in enterohepatic circulation of bile salts. Drugs. So impaired mucosal absorption like intestinal resection or inflammation of the small intestine, and some genetic disorders. So nutrients delivery to or from the small intestine like lymphatic disorders because of vascular compromise, and circulatory disorders. Any circulatory disorders like congestive cardiac failure, chronic liver disease, mesenteric artery occlusion can cause disruption in your absorption from the small intestine and cause chronic diarrhea. So any questions?
So diabetes में किन nocturnal diarrhea भएको?
Because your diabetes has caused severe impairment in your nerve, usually because of diabetic neuropathy. Okay, diabetic neuropathy, its control in the sleep cycle is altered, and there will be also because in chronic diabetes, the mucosal surface of your intestine is reduced. As a result, there will be a nocturnal diarrhea. Basically, it is a diabetic neuropathy.
Awesome.
So, तिमीहरुले पढ्नु पर्ने इन्डिभिजुअल नेक्स्ट टपिक यो malabsorption syndrome छ. अलमोस्ट मैले एप्रोचहरु सबै सिकाइदिएको छु. सबैले टिप अथवा आफैले पढ्नु पर्ने टपिक्सहरु. सिलियाक डिजिज लेख सबैले. सिलियाक डिजिज लेख्यो? लेख्यो?
हजुर.
Then tropical sprue, TROPICAL SPRUE, tropical sprue. लेख्यो?
हजुर.
Bacterial overgrowth syndrome. And congenital and genetic malabsorption syndrome. यो तिम्रो आफैले पढ्नु है. यो तिम्रो टपिकहरुमा आउन सक्छ. इन्भेस्टिगेशन्सहरु सबै यही हो. अलिकति डिफरेन्स छ. म मिल्यो भने पढमला तिमीहरुलाई. थर्सडे म नभ्याउन पनि सक्छु. त्यही भएर मैले अहिले नै सुरुमै लिइदिएको. तिमीहरुको थर्सडेको टपिक malabsorption syndrome हो. मैले यही सकाइदिएको छु. आजको टपिक क्रोनिक डायरिया हो है. सो मैले पढाउन बाँकी रहेको टपिक म कुनै बेला फ्री भयो भने म पढाइदिन्छु. ट्रपिकल स्प्रू, सिलियाक डिजिज, स्मल बाउल ब्याक्टेरियल ओभरग्रोथ सिन्ड्रोम र कन्जेनाइटल डिफेक्ट्सहरु. थ्यांक यू भेरी मच.
Thursday class